I'm going to actually go ahead and get started right now and give you a happy, warm welcome. My name is Leah Good. I am in Fairfield County, which is just outside of the Columbus area. I'm joined by a few of my colleagues in Buckeye State Rural. Cheryl, Tina, Michelle, and Andrea are on this call, and we are part of the all-volunteer board for Buckeye State Rural. And I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your schedules. I know we're all ramping up and getting busy now, and I very much appreciate the time. We're going to try to limit this to 45 minutes, no more than an hour of your time tonight. So here's what we'll be doing this evening. First, I'll go over what Buckeye State Rural is and what we've been doing over the last few election cycles. Then I'll ask you to think about and give us some ideas about topics or messages that you think we can use this year around Ohio to support progressive policies and candidates. We really need your input, and we really value it because you are on the ground and you know your communities best. Following that discussion and sort of a compilation of topics and issues, we'll come back to what we plan to do in 2024 and kind of our timeline for the whole cycle. I'm going to ask that you remain muted until the time that we say we can unmute. But please, if you think of questions along the way, we will be monitoring the chat. And if we don't answer them by the end, we will answer them at the end when it comes to question and answer time. So what is Buckeye State Rural? We are a 527 federal Super PAC. We formed in 2017 out of the group Indivisible Ohio District 15. We spent 2017 thinking about ways to use different media. We did a lot of research in relationship to connecting with rural voters, evaluating both reach and price per reach. We decided on our first strategy as billboards. So Tina, you want to go to the next slide? So in 2018, we kicked off our first billboard in Lancaster, Ohio, which is near where I live in Fairfield County. The first billboard you can see on your upper left is actually sort of our proof of concept. And we learned a lot just from that one billboard. We learned that that billboard was not very readable. We quickly realized that they need to be less busy, that there's no sense in having a sky behind a billboard when the sky surrounds the billboard and it just kind of melts together. And so as a proof of concept, that was a learning experience in the upper left-hand corner. What we arrived with in 2018 is the message and the look in the lower left-hand corner. Your vote Democratic, your healthcare depends on it. In 2018, we had 5 billboards around District 15. What was District 15 that time? And we gained nearly 7 million views in the 2 months before the 2018 election. You can see from this example that we focused on healthcare because that was the point at which, you probably remember, members of Congress were going after the Affordable Care Act and trying to gut it. So we really focused on healthcare in 2018. Now that leads us, our lessons learned in 2018 lead us to 2020. That was a big year for us. Most of you, I recognize your names, were working very hard during 2019 and 2020 leading up to the federal elections. In 2020, we had 6 different messages, 6 billboard designs. Following what you can see is kind of arriving at our branding and style. You might notice that we haven't named candidates, that we don't engage in negative campaigning. This is a choice that we made pretty early on. We wanted positive, pro-government messages that the federal government delivers infrastructure, delivers services to Ohio, including democracy, Medicaid, the environmental protections, etc. So one of the things that we learned and did in 2020 was to reach out to groups beyond District 15 around the state working directly with them in their communities to put billboards in high traffic areas. And the results, next slide, Tina, were that in 2020, we raised $50,000. We had 38 billboards across Ohio, and you can kind of see the trajectory going up toward the lake. We were in 13 counties and 5 congressional districts. The numbers in these circles are actually the districts. So you can see that there are 4 in District 7. These billboards gained more than 20 million views. I'll briefly note here that all Buckeye State Rural folks, again, are volunteers, except for some bank fees, some post office box, and our limited website fees. All monies contributed go toward creating billboards and putting them up in high traffic rural areas. Even our treasurer, who is a retired CPA, volunteers his time. I want to mention too, a couple things. One is that our annual reports are always available with our financials. We also report diligently quarterly to the Federal Elections Committee. All of those documents are public documents, so all our financials are open for inspection. If you do the math, which I did, unbeknownst to my colleagues here, $50,000 to get 20 million views is 25 cents a view. Now, even if you say, well, Leah, people see that billboard 5 times when they're going to work, I will argue that that's still only $1.25 a view, and that's one of the best, most efficient and economical way to reach people in rural areas. Next slide. Now, as a federal PAC, we only are active in federal cycles. So in 2021, we all took a big break. As you know, we all needed it. In 2022, we came back with some billboard designs where we emphasized the good results that a Democratic president, Senate, and Congress had gotten. For example, we highlighted the billions and millions of dollars coming to Ohio as a result of the infrastructure bill. Our message was, Democrats deliver these good things to Ohio. We had 7 possible messages in 2022, and you can kind of see, again, we're focusing on the positive. We have a very distinct set of colors and styling for our billboards. And obviously in 2022, we had much fewer billboards than we did. Our 7 billboards had nearly 5 million views across 6 counties during 2022. And guess what? This year is also a federal election cycle. So what's important about this year? Presidential election cycle. Our Senator Brown is up for re-election and has a tough fight, even though his competitors may not be the people that we want them to be. They don't seem to be nice people at all. They don't seem to be smart people at all. But we need to support Senator Brown, President Brown, and all congressional seats are up for re-election. So we can't, as a federal super PAC, we can't promote state and local issues. So you might have noticed last year we didn't get involved with the Reproductive Freedom Amendment, for example. Excuse me. But we do provide, as a federal PAC, kind of the overall context. We, Democrats support federal help like Social Security, federal funding of things like, making sure we have clean air and clean water, making sure our bridges don't collapse. We believe that our messages at that level do help down ballot candidates. So right now, again, we're focusing on president, Senate, and congressional races. We know that there are local races as well. We believe that that message supports down ballot Democrats. And so as we kick off 2024, you might be asking yourself, why am I here? And we wanted to gather you because we have an important question for this. Next slide, Tina. What do you think are the issues in 2024 that we might focus on? We're pretty committed to billboards as a mechanism. Billboards, we believe, have a high impact at a reasonable cost. And so we believe that we reach exponentially more voters in rural areas than we could by knocking doors. You know, my nearest neighbor is 3 acres away, which is pretty close. It's walkable. 6 neighbors away, now we're getting into mileage. We have a question for you tonight then, based on your knowledge of your communities, about what are the issues that people are talking about. We know that some issues are evergreen, like the economy. Are people talking about inflation, wages, and jobs? Healthcare, is there a way to talk about healthcare at the federal level to build on the momentum that the state of Ohio had after winning the petition drive and enshrining reproductive rights in our state constitution? Is it a workers and a union message? We've had a lot of national union wins lately. The climate, the environment, agriculture, democracy. I mean, some of these things are evergreen, like these. Here's our planned, based on our experience, here's our planned timeline for 2024. Again, we've been through 3 elections. This will be our 4th election cycle, and we've gotten pretty good at understanding what we need to do and when. So starting now in January, we gather and finalize our messaging and our design. For the next several months, we are going to do outreach to different groups around the state and raise funds to put billboards in place. We hope to talk to as many groups around the state as we can, and all of us will make ourselves available, 1 or more of us, for any like online meetings that you'd like to schedule, a quick chat with your group. I am 90% available, and I know my colleagues are too. The thing about billboards is you can't secure it and then get it up the next day or the next week. They take a while. The sooner that we have funds and locations, the easier it will be to get good locations. We anticipate that there's going to be a lot of competition this year for billboards from all the other political campaigns. And we have opportunities now to raise funds and secure the billboards before the primaries that we may lose after the primaries. What happens during January through June is that we gather and finalizing the messaging, we present to groups, we reach out to everyone that we can and raise funds. May, June, we're going to understand where we are with fundraising and be able to secure the boards at that point and choose a message for each board that makes sense. I'll talk more about that in a minute. We spend a lot of time later in the summer signing contracts, paying the vendors, creating all the graphics files for the billboards, and then also verifying that the billboards are up. We've been known to travel around the state taking pictures of those. That doesn't sound like it should be a lot of work. It is a lot of work because even though we'll have maybe 5 or 6 designs, every billboard company has to make their billboards just a little bit different. One's skinny, one's fat, one's square, one's rectangular. It takes an enormous amount of time to fiddle around with the files. And so when we start looking at our timeline, we're actually getting to the point where we need to start thinking about billboards and groups and locations right now. So political billboards are a little different than other billboards. What the billboard companies have learned is that if they get a political candidate who doesn't win, they're not going to pay their bill. So political billboards need to be paid. We can't hold them. We have to secure them and contract for them immediately. We can't say, oh, can you hold it until we raise the funds? They're not going to do that. We have to pay them as soon as we sign the contract to have the billboards up for, late August through early November in the election. We've learned a lot since 2018. I'll emphasize that again about how to get this done. We know what makes a billboard good in terms of good location and what the process is. We have connections now to the billboard companies and their sales representatives that we draw on. And, we report all of our federal election committees quarterly reports on time, perfect. We've never gotten a ding from the Federal Elections Committee. So we make it easy for progressive groups, even if they're not registered as a 501c4 or a PAC or anything else, we make it easy for them to get their billboards up in their area legally and efficiently. So next slide, please. So how do we fund these billboards? So we rely on you as individuals and as groups. First, as individuals, next slide, we ask you to contribute through ActBlue on our website. We accept checks, and you can see our P.O. box is in Baltimore, Ohio, near me. Individual contributions, we've actually gotten some contributions lately from some interesting places. Individual contributions are going into our general fund that funds billboards based on our research about where we want to place them. Again, we have 3 election cycles of information about what works and what could be better. So your individual funds, for example, would go toward the general cycle of billboards around Ohio based on what we know. Now, what you can do as groups, and here's what we learned in 2020. We learned, next slide, thanks. We learned that our reach exponentially happens better with local groups. So our best strategy is to work with local groups to put billboards in your area. First, we will give a presentation to your group. If you're interested, please put your email in the chat and or let me know, send it directly to me. Leah at Buckeye State Rural is my email address. We'll present to your group and show the billboards and the designs. We'll work directly with your group to set up an ActBlue channel created just for you. So for example, in 2020, we had the ActBlue Athens channel and Southeastern Ohio channel. And you noticed, if you remember that map, all of the billboards that were in the Appalachian area. So your members would contribute through an ActBlue channel that's just for your membership. And that gives them, I think, a sense of excitement and ownership, like, hey, here's our billboard. Here's our billboard in downtown Norwalk, Ohio, right over Fiesta Mexicana restaurant. So your members contribute just for your billboard, and your group picks that location and your choice of the messages that we create. You know your communities better than we do, especially if you're not in Central Ohio and you're outside of our immediate area, for me at least. You know what's going to work. What are the high traffic areas? What are the areas that people always have to stop? Is there a stop sign or a stoplight, or is it just high traffic and people have to slow down and be able to read the billboards? So the best, if your group is interested, the best thing I can do is come to talk to your group. We can talk a little bit about the process and the numbers, and we will work directly with you to identify the board, to raise the funds, help raise the funds, and then secure it once your funding is raised. I want to emphasize again that 2024 is going to be really competitive. The best time to do and secure these billboards is as soon as we can. If you know it's a good location because people drive by and they have to stop and it's really easy to see, the politicians are going to know it too. Many of them are going to wait until well after the primaries to start worrying about billboards. That means we have an opportunity between now and April to secure some really great billboards in some really great areas. Thank you again for taking time out of your evening for us. We appreciate all of the feedback, and we will work on it and review it and analyze it. And hopefully by the end of February, early March, we will have some designs and some messaging to share with the world. So please keep a lookout for that, and let us know if we can come to your group and talk about Buckeye State Rural.